women divorce women, lesbian couples initiate divorce at 200% the rate that gay couples initiate divorce. So that when women don't even have men to blame, they're still leaving marriages more than men are.
There was this statistic going around that some people said that I misquoted it, which might be true, but it doesn't. I still didn't get the principle wrong. It was about lesbian marriage having a higher divorce rate. And I used that to kind of demonstrate how maybe, possibly what's going on is that women are more sensitive to negative emotion. And so they're having feelings about their partners and then just saying, well, if I have the feeling, there it is. If I have the feeling, then you must have done something. Like this is an illustrated psychological projection. If I'm feeling something, it must be because you did it. So when you get two girls together, it's just like a lot of, I have a bad feeling, so you must have done it. Well, you must have done it. Well, you must have done it. And I've had friends who were lesbian couples, and that's how they fought. And I got to see them say, like, it was like, you never buy me flowers. Well, you never buy me flowers. Well, you never initiate. Well, you never initiate. And it was like a lot of negative energy. Not that negative is bad. It's just that, existence, masculine and feminine, have to come together to create things. So, this video was doing really, really well, and I was going to make a ton of money on it, and they demonetized after like 90 minutes.
Did they say exactly why?
It said hate speech.
That's incredible. I'm just curious. So was the 72% number the one that was incorrect?
So I guess that it's the way that people said it to me is that it's not that 72% of them end in divorce compared to straight marriage. It's that there was maybe 72% of gay marriages that ended in divorce were lesbians, and the others were gay men.
Yeah. So no, the answer. So here's what this is why I was a little confused. So the way it works is about 56% of heterosexual divorce, or divorces overall, actually believe 56% end in divorce. 56% of marriages. It is 52% for the first marriage, 63% for the second marriage, and like 73% for the third marriage. I may be wrong. I think it may be 68% for the second marriage. I can't remember, but James Sexton's going to come on and clear me up on that. When it came to, they were like, what were the reasons for divorce? When 80% of divorces, 70 to 80% of divorces are initiated by women, the question is, why are these women initiating these divorces? I've had a marriage therapist on here in a previous episode, and she was saying, well, it's because men are not doing their part. So even though 80% of the divorces are initiated by women, it's men's fault that was going on. I was like, okay, that's an interesting hypothesis. Why don't we control for that? Why don't we look at marriages where women are married to women and men are married to men? And the reality is women divorce women, lesbian couples initiate divorce at 200% the rate that gay couples initiate divorce, so that when women don't even have men to blame, they're still leaving marriages more than men are. Now, the numbers are much lower than 56%. So the reality of the situation is same-sex couples, for whatever reason, they get divorced at a lower rate. But the point is the women were complaining about the same things, but there were no men involved, especially the domestic abuse one. That is a big one. Domestic abuse reported amongst lesbian couples is outrageously high. The other thing that precipitated divorce, I think you'll find this interesting, between lesbian couples was when one of the two members of the relationship, one of the two members of the marriage, had a baby, a biological baby that was theirs. When that happened, that triggered divorce. And I think because this is just my opinion, there's some data behind this. There's a book called Dataclysm. It's the CTO from OkCupid. I think he wrote this book. Yeah. And he was looking at data between bisexual men and bisexual women. And what he found is that bisexual men, in large part on the platform, only messaged men. Bisexual women, on the other hand, messaged men and women, showing that actual true bisexual men, like actual real fucking destinies, are very rare. That's like less than 1.5% of the population. Bisexual women, however, will go through phases, and bisexuality or sexuality for them is more of a spectrum. And so the idea was, we have a lesbian woman who still has genetics of a female, and she's sitting there looking at her child and then says, this isn't what I want, this lesbian relationship. I probably need a man here. And then that's essentially what happens. That's one of the theories. I'm not saying that's absolutely a fact, but having a child with a lesbian couple precipitating divorce could be a theory why that is happening. But going back to what you're saying before, if the problem were that men are creating the issue, then what you would see is that lesbian couples would get divorced at a lower rate than homosexual couples because men are the problem. You see what I'm saying? Right. But what happens instead is that lesbian couples are getting divorced at 200% the rate that male couples are, because in cases, what your theory was is that a lot of times women make up the problem, and then that causes the 70 to 80% divorce rate.
Yes, I think that what they refer to as women having a higher sensitivity to negative emotion.
Yes.
is just sort of, what men refer to as women causing unnecessary problems. And this
Yes.
is my recommendation for how to deal with it. Just don't go down to that level. This is just something that, someone yesterday asked me if I hate women because I depict them this way. And that's one of those questions I'm going to be getting because I talk about what actually happens in relationships. But this is an experience every man has who's dated a woman for more than a couple of weeks, that she will find a reason to start a problem based on something that we didn't know or weren't aware of and don't really understand why it's an issue. And it's because she's just has this sort of instinct, I believe, to feel something negative, blame you for it, and then see if she can tear you down with it. It's kind of that's what they call a shit test, I think, right?
Yes, a shit test, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's my depiction of that.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, that's my depiction of how that works. Is that women will spontaneously do this to see what you do, and it's a way of testing your emotional strength. And when women are shit testing women in lesbian relationships, they probably don't have the hardware for it.
Yeah, so they failed the shit test. Exactly. I see what you're saying, definitely. Oh,
Yeah.
well, the thing is, as a guy, you made that one video where the girl was complaining on the phone and the guy was celebrating. He was happy because then he understood she was invested in the relationship. And you have to understand, a woman from an ancestral period, she has a lot of more invested in a relationship than women do today. If a woman today does something where she has been promiscuous, she ends up like, what's her name? Nina Agdal, where she's embarrassed on Twitter. But a woman in an ancestral period who had sex with the wrong man or had a baby with the wrong man, her and her child are ostracized from the tribe and they die. They literally starve to death. The ostracization of her for having sex with the wrong man or being perceived as a slut or whatever was so incredibly damaging. It was so dangerous. It was such a life and death situation. That's why it was more important. So it was more important for her to make sure that she kept the man she was with. So what does she do? She's constantly checking. Are you looking at that other girl? And that's where these shit tests come from. Why did you do this? Why did you do this?